especially delighted to have Samuel present this morning. Really, he and I had had some email exchanges about Dark Night of the Soul, and I had just felt that was an important topic that kind of had been skirted around at times, but not really fully addressed. And Samuel said, I'm going to share my Dark Night of the Soul and open it up to other people. So I just respect your courage and authenticity. And I think you're just such a gift to the group. I don't know how many of you know that, but Samuel has had an organization I'm just seeing here since, oh, you're saying Sacred Friends is just since 2002. But he's had other groups, Transformational Friends of Santa Monica from 89 to 91. I really got to know Samuel because I knew if anything was happening in Southern California, Samuel would know, because he makes it his business to find out about that and share it with people. And it's a lot of time and labor intensive, and I really appreciate that. So I'm just delighted to have him share this morning. Take it away, Samuel.
Thank you. That's a nice introduction. I appreciate that. This is sort of like an autobiography, but it talks about the main theme that has run my life. I'll start off with the fact that my parents were Holocaust survivors, and my mom, God bless Sylvia, came here not very healthy in 1949 after going through, they didn't go through the concentration camps, they met in Siberia. So they didn't have as bad as some, but they had a rough time of it nonetheless. And she was looking for a way to get healthy. And she became a health food evangelist. She discovered Dr. Shelton's Natural Hygiene Society, and he wrote the book Fasting Can Save Your Life. And it was how he didn't believe in medicine. He believed if you're sick, you should rest and stay on distilled water like the animals do in nature, and allow your body to heal itself. And you should eat raw fruits and vegetables and nuts as your main source of nutrition. And I was raised that way my first 20 years. I was also raised a cultural Jewish atheist, and I was groomed to do business by my dad. When I was 16, he gave me a car full of shoes from his shoe store. He said, go sell these at the swap meet and keep half the money. And I was successful and made good money as a kid. And in fact, I continued to do those things. Here's a picture of me. My father had a pickup truck, and I gathered things from all over the neighborhood, thrown away carpets, mattresses, anything that could be reused, and sold them to swap meet. And I also worked for Blue Ribbon Sports, which turned out to be Nike. And I was the high school rep to track teams. I got subscriptions for track shoes. I got $2 per pair. And anyways, that's a whole business thing. But the main focus here is when I transferred to UCLA, I got involved with UCLA Experimental College in my junior year. And it was where anybody could teach and learn anything. You didn't have to be a student at the university. They provided a space, and we all taught each other. I learned about yoga, Tai Chi, and meditation, and it totally changed my life. For the first time, I realized there was a spiritual way of connecting to source. And up until then, I'd been an atheist. And it just grabbed me. It was like the most important thing and the only thing. And as I became aware of this, I made a vow with God. I said, the world is crazy, mixed up, upside down, and backwards. Please take me through this mess as quickly as possible. Even if you and even if I have to go on the roller coaster, I wanted to go through all the confusion and connect to source and have that spiritual direct line. And so 2 years later, when I graduated UCLA, my major was American Social History. My minor was ethnic dance. I was totally lost. I didn't feel like I was prepared for life. I'd been a student all my life. And I didn't have hardly anybody to connect with. I felt like a lost soul. And I went into a deep depression. And that summer of '73, and I came out of that, I became psychotic. And I ended up in the mental hospital in San Francisco for 2 months.
Mm.
And he started me on the path of taking lithium. And that was something I did on and off for 8 years. And in a sense, you would say my prayers were answered. I was taken on the roller coaster. Every year for 10 years, I would end up in a hospital and get stabilized on lithium, put on Thorazine, and then I'd go home and be depressed for 6 months. I was a couch potato and mushroom head. I didn't work. I didn't hardly see anybody. I watched TV and my brain became very flat. And then I'd start to get better. I'd start to make some new friends or connect with old friends. And then I'd gradually get a job and I'd start to build my life over again. And then I would burst into manic or psychosis. And I'd start the cycle. I'd spend my money, blow everything out. Thank God I wasn't a violent person. And then I'd start over. I would be hospitalized. I'd be tranquilized with Thorazine. I'd get put back on lithium. And I went through about 6 months of depression. After, it would be either 2 weeks to 2 months hospitalization per year, 6 months of depression. And then I would rebuild my life. And that went on and on and on for about 10 years. And then I got tired of the roller coaster. I looked at myself in the mirror and I saw this very dull person, and I couldn't live with that. So I decided I would end it. I made it another, like a vow to myself. I'd rather not live than continue like this. So what I did was I worked on my brain every morning for half an hour, where I do the Reiki positions. I balanced my brain, and that gave me a little bit of emotional stability, because at that time, anything that was off center set me off, and I would just react to the energy of the room, and I had very little control over my emotions. It was very painful. I never knew what the day would be like. And so the Reiki helped to stabilize my brain. And then I listened to positive tapes on the way back and forth to work. Brian Tracy, Stuart Wilde, and Wayne Dyer. And I did about an hour of tapes in every day, 5 days a week. And I started seeing a psychic nutritionist, and she had a pendulum, and I saw her twice a month, and she would determine which products I needed, supplements to build up the nutrition of my brain. And I'd spend like $250 a month on nutrition for the brain. And so I did everything I could possibly think of. And I also saw initially, I saw a lay nutritionist who got me off of lithium and gave me some supplements to wean me off. It took me 2 months, and I stopped taking lithium. And I was okay. In fact, there wasn't a relapse till like maybe 20 years later when I went to a lecture on the Christ diet. And the guy talked about just eating pure raw foods. And I cold turkey did that, and it caused a slight relapse. And then my wife, Pauline, took me to the outpatient clinic. They got me back on lithium. And within about a month, I discovered a naturopathic form of lithium. It was lithium orotate, which was like a homeopathic dose, and it had no side effects. And I was taking that on and off for a long time. And I didn't need the medical lithium. Anyways, as I pulled out of this morass, very, very painful period. Imagine not being able to be friends with people, not being able to connect with people, and just going through this crisis every year. I tried to help other people I knew who were suffering. And I found that when I tried to do that, it would pull me down. And I couldn't be there for them in that way, not then. And so I used this challenge to create fellowship where we could together help each other and meet and help each other. Some people are down, some people are up, and we'd all work together to help each other. And I started a journey of, I took that negative 10 years and I use it as a catalyst to inspire me to create environments where people could help each other to grow and to be all they could be and suffer less. And I took me a long time to get through that. And I didn't want other people to have to go through that much. So I created environments where people could help each other to more quickly get through whatever they were going through. And I went to the 5th National Men's Conference. I think it was in the middle 80s. And it was at UCLA. And out of that, we formed men's groups. In my area, it was a group that met in Venice. We met once a week for 10 weeks. And then a friend of mine said, why are you just meeting with the men? Why don't you work it out with the women? So I ran into a friend of mine on the Venice boardwalk, and she was a feminist, and she had a bunch of friends, and we met once a month for a year and a half. We have giant potluck dinners, and we stood for the women while they aired their anger, and we just allowed them that space to do that. It was very revolutionary back then. And out of that, it sort of ran its course. And out of that, I started to have gatherings in my home, and I wanted to do a book study group. And there was a book called Journey of the Heart by John Wellwood, and it touched me deeply. I wanted people to read it and share about it. And people came to these gatherings, but they weren't reading the book. They were mainly interested in socialization. So then I went for the harmonic convergence to Mexico, Guatemala, and Belize. And in Mexico, I went to Teotihuacan, which is a giant Aztec pyramid area, half an hour north of Mexico City. And there was the Pyramid of the Moon and the Pyramid of the Sun. And the energy there was so fantastic. And people were walking around like nothing was going on. And I was saying to myself, why don't they feel this? And I meditated on the Pyramid of the Sun. And I meditated so long they had to kick me out when they were closing. And it came to me to create a fellowship in my home once a week where people could meditate and grow together. And I created Transformational Friends of Santa Monica, which is where I used to live. And everyone was welcome. We had up to 40 people in my living room, in my apartment. And people would sit in silence for half an hour. And there was no instruction about how to meditate. And someone complained to me, your meditation is too long. I said, well, you don't have to come. I just wanted to have a deep spiritual root in it. And then we'd sit in a circle. It was egalitarian. I was the facilitator role. I wasn't trying to tell people what to think or what to do. And then we'd share in the group where we were coming from, what we were into, and if there was something they wanted us to know about in the community. Then we'd have a speaker or a movie. It was all life positive, uplifting. I gave everybody who wanted to speak a chance to speak. We sometimes had famous people. We a lot of times had not so famous people. It was a chance for people to be part of community, which is what I lacked so much in my 20s. And anyways, and then I'm sorry, my mind stopped for a moment there. We'd have a whole table of healthy food, and the idea was that people would be uplifted on all levels, and the fellowship, and people met each other and connected. They could come every week just by entering into my sacred space that I created. People could have so much, be nourished so deeply. And I had a mailing list of 600 people. I used to send out every 2 months what was going on. And it was very good, but I didn't know how to delegate for other people to help. I ended up meeting my wife, ultimately my wife, Pauline, and she would help me. And I think after about 1.5 years, I burnt out on that. I did it for about 1.5 years, I'm sorry, in my home. And then I rented a hall from the Quakers. And we did that for another better part of 1 year. And we had really good speakers, and I charged a little money, and it was paying for itself. And then we had a weekend workshop right after. And sometimes we were able to do the workshop. Other times we weren't, because I should have done it a week later so people had a chance to plan. All of a sudden, to take their weekend from them, it was a little much for some people. But it worked out, and it's actually 2.5 years for the full process. And then we decided to give it a break, and we'd have occasional gatherings in our home. And then with the year 2002, I decided to do an online community, Sacred Friends community. And I started to build that. And I didn't like buy lists. I just had friends and friends of friends and people I met at the expos sign up. And it's grown to about 1,900 people now. It's a dedicated list of people who are into consciousness. And the idea is, again, to help people grow to their highest potential, to raise them up. And we help each other. In fact, I just created another thing called Intergalactic Friendship Club, and I'm starting to build that. And the idea is it takes it off planet. You know, it's like, you're welcome as long as you come in peace. And I've got about 45 people signed up, and I'm building a new website, and it's just a fun thing. And anyways, it's like to break down the barriers we've created, you know, politically, socially, economically. All people will be welcome. And it's something to, again, raise the consciousness, build bridges. That's what we need on this planet. So anyways, during this process, I became a teacher. I didn't know what to do. I was like a lost soul. And then I decided, what can I do? I took a class in marriage, family, and relationships, and it talked about Erik Erikson's 8 stages of life. And the 5th stage, the middle adulthood, that people, if they don't start giving back to their community, they stop growing. And so I thought, what can I do to help myself and others grow and make a living? And so I became a teacher. And that gave me structure, which I really lacked. I had to show up Monday through Friday, be there at 8, blah, blah, blah. and I substitute taught for 6 years in LA Unified. And then I was an inner city math science teacher in the 6th grade. And I brought original curriculum into it called geometric drawing, the math art connection. And I used spiritual material I learned about sacred geometry to create that curriculum. And the kids loved it, especially the kids who are incorrigible, the hyperkinetic kids. They really took to it. They would finish early and I'd have them go around and help the other kids. And then I also created that for math teachers, where I taught up to 100 teachers at a time at the California Math Conference, and up to 16 hours long when I did a lot of hands-on work. And for the math teachers, I brought in full metaphysics. I was like breaking through the barriers, and they didn't want to leave. You know, I had them drawing their own mandalas, and these are left brain math teachers being introduced to metaphysics with sacred geometry, which is a direct pathway to source. And this was a whole new opening to their creativity. And it was wonderful. And I did it for about 10 years. And then I changed the name from Geometric Drawing, the Math Art Connection, to Sacred Geometry, the Math Art Connection. And I was uninvited to the California Math Conference because that's breaking through the barriers there. I did it on purpose, so it forced me to go public. And I've developed a PowerPoint presentation for the last 10, 15 years. And I've been doing that at all the expos. And in the process, I started carrying pendants and people loved them. They said, where can I get one? So I started buying them wholesale, and that's a whole story. And that enabled me to take early retirement. I was the top of the scale for teachers, and I took early retirement selling my sacred geometry pendants and my violet glass bottles and jars. Anyways, so in 2019, I had an accident. I could have died. I was at the local gym, and a car crashed through the glass wall from the parking lot and hit the treadmill that I was standing on. And I went flying. And I remember when I was flying through the air, I said, I guess this is it. And I ended up crashing against a glass door that was unlocked. So that absorbed some of the shock. And then I got up and I started joking with the people in the gym. That's a whole other story. But I was wearing this Sri Yantra mandala, and one of the qualities of the Sri Yantra is it helps prevent people from dying. So that was a great affirmation, and I'm going to use that as a theme for writing a book, autobiographical book, including the sacred geometry. I've been trying to motivate myself to do that for about a year. And actually preparing for this talk gave me an outline. I can use that outline for writing the book. So when I did the forum as a teacher years ago, they wanted you to create a purpose for your life. And I created the purpose of being a catalyst for rising the consciousness of humanity through higher education. And I think I've lived into that. I've lived my purpose. I've done things that I've enjoyed. My last 9 years as a teacher for LA Unified, I was independent studies teacher, modified homeschooling in middle school. And that was the greatest job in the world. The kids used to come in with their parents to my office, and I looked at moments to raise them up, to catalyze them, to get them re-engaged in education. And the parents really appreciated it. And I was able to turn around a lot of kids. But even that got old after 9 years. I think about every 10 years, we have to change it around to keep things interesting. So again, I started these two businesses. I took early retirement, and I've been doing the online community. And what can I say? I think it's important to use your challenges in life, because everything is for a reason, and it's all to help you grow. The universe is really, really friendly. And so I took the 10 years of deep, deep suffering, and I used that as a theme for my life. To be careful what you ask for, because you will probably get it ultimately, maybe not in your own timing, but in divine right timing. So as bad as things seem, there's a reason for what's happening, and we all play a part in the puzzle of life. And if we all do our part, then this world will be a much better place. And I appreciate the opportunity to serve in my capacity as an individual. And I welcome you all to use your dark night of the soul to become your greatest self. And I open this up now to people sharing of their life experience. Who would like to share? Mary Grace.
Thank you, Samuel. I'm really deeply moved by your sharing all of it, and how you've come through that and used it to change your life and the lives of other people. Very touching to me. You know, the times in my life that I hated the most, that were my dark nights of the soul, have been the very times that have created the life I have now. They've been the very vehicles, I guess, that have forced me through passages that I wouldn't have done. I've been suicidal a number of times in my life, as a child, from sexual abuse, writing this book that I've been working on for years. Some of those memories that I didn't really forget, but I had put aside, I guess, came up, and starting at 9 years old, and again as a teenager. That was when I didn't have the memories of the sexual abuse, but I just had such an incredibly mean voice inside my head, self-judgment. It was just constant. And I just felt like, oh my God, I can't live with that voice. And I thought what it said to me was true. And through it all and through my adult life, I had what I call the mask of a smile. Nobody knew what was going on behind the smile. And, you know, the thing is, I did it so well, I didn't even know it. I really didn't. I've been married 3 times, married and had a son with my first husband, and left that marriage and remarried Sid, and gosh, within little more than a year, my husband committed suicide, and my son's father died from cancer. My nephew died of AIDS, and our trainer, who was a mentor for my son, died of AIDS. And my son just didn't recover after all that trauma, and I had to send him away to a lockup, basically in Idaho. It was a wonderful transformational place. He was there 3 years, and he actually loved it. He loved it now, but it turned his life around. So during that period, I felt like the universe had pulled the rug out from under me, and I was in free fall. I had had a life filled with people and relationship, and all of a sudden I was completely alone and not connected with community at all. And yet through it all, there was a part of me that I knew that the universe had pulled the rug out from under me so I could have my new life, and I had no idea what I was talking about. Gradually, when I stopped trying to get up and live my life the way I always had, gradually that new life developed, and it was community and a center called the Sacred Space. About 10 years after that, I had a Kundalini awakening, and which developed into shamanic energy and memories that came up with the sexual child abuse and alien abduction. And I thought I was insane. Fast forward, I guess the things that were most helpful for me getting through that is University of Santa Monica transpersonal program. I was there for 4 years, and Women Within with the weekly women's circles. And that was us healing each other. And that really transformed and changed my life. I did lots of individual therapy too. I thought that everybody felt the way I did inside. I thought everybody did. And then I discovered everybody didn't feel like that, the self-hatred. And so gradually over the years, I've really been blessed with lots of relationship in my life, which is a core place in my life. My husband, I had the wisdom to marry this man. And my life from the inside out is so dramatically different. People used to talk about self-love, and I think, yeah, fine, how do you do that? And through these different tools that I learned, I found that. And so now inside, I have a peace and compassion for myself, and for others. What gives my life meaning is I'm not going to do any big thing out there in the world, but I look next to me, look around me. How can I help? The little things, and that gives meaning to my life. So,
Thank you, Mary Grace. Who else would like to share?
Thomas Griggs has his hand up.
Okay.
Thank you, Samuel, for this, and thank you, Mary Grace. I'm actually going to cheat a little bit. You mentioned, first of all, I don't think it's a dark night, Samuel. I think it's a dark decade. And so it got me reflecting on acute events in my life, as well as protracted periods of struggle and distress, both of which are relevant. And rather than share that now, I will, in 3 weeks, I'm going to present to the circle. And you mentioned back being at the International Men's Conference and being in men's groups as a step in the process. So I'll be presenting on 30 years in the Mankind Project and the impact that that's had and the importance of male initiation. So I'll share some of my dark night stuff then, rather than take time now. But thank you for opening this up, because it's helping me clarify what I could share a little later. And I appreciate your leadership on this. It's a great story. I look forward to your book.
I spent some time with the Sterling men's community. It was very intense.
I'm aware of
helpful.
it. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Mim, please.
Your courage and your authenticity, both of you, Mary Grace and Samuel, moved me to share some of my experience. I grew up in a small town in Delaware, and my parents were in business with my grandparents, and they raised and auctioned off livestock. So I grew up on a 33-acre horse ranch, and that's where I love to learn. I learned to love horses. I wanted to be a jockey. I did, because my grandfather was a sulky driver, and we went to there was a state fair every year, and we would go every summer and sit in the box seats and watch my grandfather race the standardbred racehorses, we also watched the runners. They were the thoroughbreds, and I wanted to be one of those jockeys wearing one of those shiny uniforms. But because I was a girl and because my voice wasn't heard, it got overlooked, and I never got to be a jockey, which was a big wound, deep wound to me. I didn't realize that in order to be a jockey, you had to be, 3'2" and weigh 50 pounds, but that wasn't relevant anyway. So when I was in college, all my girlfriends were getting engaged, and I got really scared, and I was very scared to leave college and go on my own. That was horrific to me, the idea. So I married my brother's fraternity brother and moved to California. And I describe it as I married my ticket out of a toxic family and came out here. And I think I was in culture shock for at least 50 years.
Wow.
But after 9.5 years of a loveless marriage, he left. And I didn't have the courage to leave. I wanted to leave 3 days into the marriage, but it was inconceivable to me. So after 2 children and whatever else drama we went through, he left, and I was absolutely lost. Absolutely lost. I'd never had a job. I was 30 years old. I didn't know what to do. And so finally, my brother, who was my knight in shining armor, took me to Olive View one night, and I met a psychiatrist who said, yes, we can help you pack your bags, and you'll spend 6 weeks at a place called Rest Haven. What was it? Rest Haven Mental Health Clinic. But it was a mental hospital on College Street in downtown LA. And my friends and my brother and his wife were going to watch the boys. And 2 days into my residence there, my soon-to-be former husband's girlfriend came and got the kids, and he was suing me for custody. And that went on for, I don't know how many years. I was in court maybe 7 or 8 times. Finally, I had to get a job in order to get out of the hospital. So I got a job, and I came back to the hospital for group at night. And my former husband kept the kids for 3.5 years. I saw them on weekends. And it was a gradual climbing out of this, I don't know what you want to call it, kind of a cesspool. But I realized when I was in the hospital that was the beginning of my life. And I learned to tell the truth, my truth, whatever that was, which I hadn't really known before. But gradually I realized that I had to decide what I was going to do for a living. I never had a job. I was 30. And I decided that I wanted to keep telling the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And the only job I could think of that I could do and tell the truth was to become a therapist. So after losing 6 jobs in 6 months, I finally got a job that I could hold on to. I was a secretary for one of the deans of the 19 state colleges. And then I found a school that I could go to on Saturdays to get my MFT license. And I did that. So I got my license in 1975. And I found a part-time job, and I quit my job and was doing counseling and doing this part-time job. my goal was to make as much money as my former husband. And the first year, 1975, I earned $22,000 and he only made 20. So that was a major victory. And it was just a climb up. It's been 48 years since I got my license, and I managed somehow, because of the communities I found that were so supportive. I joined a group of women who were learning to teach women how to have orgasms. This was in 1974. And it was taught by Lonnie Barbach, who wrote the book For Yourself. And I did that for a number of years. And then I specialized in weight management because of my own issues with weight. And I got a job at Kaiser working. I was there 22 years, but most of it has been private practice. But because of the people I met along the way, certain people just became mentors and became angels that kind of managed to guide me along. And then how many years ago has it been? 5 years, 6 years? When Mary Grace dragged me to Mastery Circle kicking and screaming because I didn't want to wake up so early in the morning. But this has been another rebirth, this community and the people that have come into my life as a result of that. So thank you, Samuel, for opening up this amazing topic that allows the rest of us to share whatever took us to where we are now. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Samuel, we have about 5 minutes, so if you want to wrap up or another quick share, up to you.
Does anybody have a burning share? Anybody have any questions? Okay. I just think it's important to engage yourself in life activities that support your essence. And it helps if you're also good at it. So then possibly you can make a livelihood, because in this culture, we need money to function. And it's sort of something we carry on our shoulders, but it's reality. And my father taught me that I could make a buck. And I've been doing small businesses on the side my whole life. And I don't like to force people to buy things. I like to share things that I believe are positive and uplifting and help to raise your vibrational frequency. I don't think anybody should be coerced to buy anything. My first spiritual teacher, Daniel Bloxam, he said, never buy anything unless it shines out at you like black fire on white fire. And that was a powerful message I've carried my whole life. Not always been successful. Sometimes I buy things for fun, but as I get older, I find that a lot of things that we buy are just clutter, turn into clutter around the house. And we want to declutter and simplify. And I believe that the closer we get to God, the more simple things become. It's not complicated. It's just something that I've learned as I've grown. And simple is beautiful, and being at peace is wonderful. And if you can combine those and spend your energy in things that are adding energy to the situation instead of being against, adversarial, then you have a chance to make a difference and be successful and positive, and like I said, a catalyst. We're all individuals. We all have gifts. And it took me a long time to figure out what my gifts were. But I think I've had the advantage of the willingness to apply them. And I think that's what we can do to be happy and help make other people happy. And it's very simple.
Thank you, Samuel. It was really wonderful. Thanks for your authenticity.